Chapter 12, Part C, Form, Meaning, and Use to Adverb Phrases. Think critically about meaning and use. Read each sentence and the statements that follow. Check the correct statement. Number 1. Ken called home upon hearing the news. Does this mean A. This tells where Ken called from, or B. This tells when Ken called home? Again, it's Ken called home upon hearing the news. This means this tells when Ken called home. So upon hearing the news is a phrase. It's a prepositional phrase that tells when Ken called. Number 2. Feeling upset after the exam, he sent me an email. Does this mean A. I was upset, or B. He was upset? Feeling upset about the exam, or feeling upset after the exam, he sent me an email means he was upset. So here we have feeling upset, and then we have he. So he was the one who was feeling upset. Number 3, having eaten lunch, I went shopping. Does this mean A. I ate lunch after I went shopping, or B. I ate lunch before I went shopping? It means I ate lunch before I went shopping. In other words, first I ate lunch, and after I had finished, I went shopping. After I had finished eating lunch can be expressed as having eaten lunch. I, this subject, means I am also the actor of this action, eating. Number 4, though cold, it was sunny outside. Does this mean it was sunny but cold, or it was cold inside and sunny outside? It means it was sunny but cold, and we're talking about outside. Though cold, showing contrast. It was sunny outside. Although it was cold, that would be a complete clause, but here we have a phrase. Though cold, it was sunny outside. Let's take an overview of adverb phrases. You'll remember a phrase is a group of words, but it's not like a clause which has a subject and verb. So adverb phrases, we'll look at them here, some examples and some rules. Be sure to do the online practice exercises. Let's look at some adverb phrases showing time. He became sick while trekking in the Himalayas. While trekking in the Himalayas is the short form for while he was trekking in the Himalayas. So if we want to make a complex sentence, we would have he became sick, main or independent clause. While he was trekking in the Himalayas, this is the dependent or subordinate clause. Instead, we can say he became sick while trekking. So that's an adverb phrase where we took out parts of, what did we take out? We took out the subject he, we took out the be verb was. Adverb phrases used to give reasons. Not having a lawyer, he will probably lose his case. Not having a lawyer means since he doesn't have a lawyer. That one is a dependent clause with a subject he and the verb doesn't have and then the verb and the object lawyer. But in the example not having a lawyer, this is an adverb phrase. It's been reduced to a phrase. It no longer has a subject and the verb, but it uses the same subject as in the main clause. He will probably lose his case. So he is also the subject of the person who does not have a lawyer. Adverb phrases used to show concession. Though still recovering from an injury, she's actively training for a triathlon. So that's where you have to swim, bike, and run. Tri meaning 3. So 3 types of athletic events all rolled into one. Though still recovering from an injury is a phrase. It has no subject, no verb. It means though she is still recovering from an injury. That is a complete clause with the subject she, and the verb is recovering. Notice that we can remove the subject she and the be verb is and end up with though still recovering from an injury. So then it's an adverb phrase. Adverb clauses of time, concession, and reason can be reduced to adverb phrases. An adverb clause can be reduced only when the subject of the two clauses is the same. If there are two different subjects, for example, while you're sleeping, that's one subject. I'm going to be working, that's a second subject. So don't omit one of those because it's not the same subject. Adverb phrases are typically used in writing to make language more concise. That means briefer, shorter. And to tie ideas together. You should only use an adverb phrase if the meaning remains clear and the sentence sounds natural. Adverb phrases of reason and concession typically come before the main clause. Showing time. Let's look at some sentences in the present time. When he isn't helping the elderly, he's tutoring needy children. That's a complex sentence with a dependent clause at the beginning, an adverbial clause. But we can change it to an adverb phrase by taking out the subject he and the be verb isn't. When not helping the elderly, he's tutoring needy children. We can do that because the subject of both clauses is the same. It's he. In the second example, we see before she jogs, she warms up thoroughly. So changing that jogs to a gerund form. Before jogging, she warms up thoroughly. In this case, both subjects are she, so we can change the adverbial clause into an adverb phrase. Here's an example in the past. He became sick while he was trekking in the Himalayas. Take out the he and the was and say, he became sick while trekking in the Himalayas. Another example, after I got home, I'd realized I'd left my keys at work. Uh-oh. After getting home, I realized. So after getting home, I is removed and so is got because I is the same for both clauses. Since I learned about the problem, I have done everything I can to help. Both sentences or both clauses use I as the subject. So the first one can change into since learning about the problem, I've done everything I can to help. Examples in the future. While they are waiting for the results, they will be given a questionnaire to complete. While they are waiting, that's a clause. While waiting for the results, that's a phrase. So now it's an adverb phrase. We can take out the subject plus the be verb. Before we visit Pompeii, we will go on to Rome. Both clauses have we as a subject. We can change before we visit to before visiting Pompeii, we will go on to Rome. So before visiting Pompeii becomes an adverb phrase. The next example is I'll be able to speak fluently after I complete the course. I'll be able to speak fluently after completing the course. Both clauses use I as the subject, so the second one can be changed to an ing verb. Adverb phrases showing time can occur in the past, present, or future time, but most frequently occur in past and future sentences. To reduce a time clause, omit the subject and any auxiliary, and then change the main verb to the present participle verb plus ing. With continuous forms, the main verb will already be in the correct form. If the clause is negative, leave not before the participle, before the ing. Clauses with before, after, while, and since are most commonly reduced. Clauses with when expressing simultaneous events are also commonly reduced. Example, when I was living in Seattle, I worked for Boeing. That means during the time I was living. We can say while living in Seattle, I worked for Boeing. Clauses with when, expressing events in sequence, can be reduced, but in these sentences, we typically replace when with upon or on. When she heard the news, she cried. Upon hearing the news, she cried. All right, let's learn about omitting subordinators in adverb phrases of past time. While he was traveling through the Canadian wilderness, he became sick. He is the subject of both clauses. We can change the first part to traveling through the Canadian wilderness, he became sick. Second example, after I got home from work, I realized I'd left my keys at the office. We can change this to having plus a past participle. In this way, having gotten home from work, I realized I'd left my keys at the office. In affirmative adverb phrases showing past time, while and when, expressing simultaneous events, can be omitted along with the subject and any auxiliary. Time subordinators cannot be omitted in adverb phrases of present or future time. So cooking, I listen to music, is incorrect. You could say it if it were in the past tense. Cooking, I listened to music. After and since can be omitted, but they are replaced with having plus the past participle. Having makes it clear that the action in the adverb phrase happened before the action in the main clause. Time clauses with as can also be reduced. Unlike after and while, as is always omitted. For example, as I was running for the bus, I tripped and fell. This clause can be reduced to a phrase, running for the bus, I tripped and fell. Giving reasons. Because she is sick, she isn't running in the race. That's a complex sentence with a DC at the front and an IC in the back. We can change the DC to a phrase, being sick, she isn't running in the race. Next example, since he does not have a lawyer, he will probably lose his case. We can change this to not having a lawyer. He will probably lose his case. So both of these show a reason for the action in the main clause. Earlier causes. If they're earlier causes, they should be shown by using having plus the past participle. For example, since I've taken a lot of art classes, I'm pretty good at drawing. This clause can be changed to the phrase, having taken a lot of art classes, I'm pretty good at drawing. The second example, because we had met our deadline, we celebrated all night. This can be reduced to a phrase, having met our deadline, we celebrated all night. So notice the use of having plus the past participle to show something happening beforehand. Okay, so to reduce an adverb clause of reason, omit the subordinator, subject, and any auxiliary, and then change the main verb to the present participle, in other words, the verb plus ing. With continuous form, the main verb will already be in the correct form. If the clause is negative, leave not before the participle. This is the same as on the previous section. Earlier causes. To emphasize that the cause occurred earlier than the effect, replace the main verb with having plus the past participle. This often occurs in clauses with the perfect. Adverbs such as never, already, and recently can occur with these adverb phrases. In this example, we have having never traveled much, he was very nervous about his trip to Brazil. Showing concession. Though she is still recovering from an injury, this is a clause with the subject she and the verb is recovering. We can reduce it to a phrase. Though still recovering from an injury, she's actively training for a triathlon. Both of them have the same subject. Although he was not looking for a new job, or although not looking for a job, he's recently had several good offers. Both of these have the same subject, he. So we're showing concession, only adverb clauses with although or though plus the present or past continuous are typically reduced. To reduce these clauses, omit the subject and auxiliary. If the clause is negative, leave not before the participle. When the clauses have a main verb be, they are sometimes reduced. To reduce these clauses, omit the subject and be. If the clause is negative, leave not before the participle. Here are some examples. Although it is expensive, personal training is a good investment. Although expensive, personal training is a good investment. Though it was not very interesting, he was very handsome. Though not very interesting, he was very handsome. I believe that the first subject should say, though he was not very interesting. That's the only way that we could omit the word he, because they have to have the same subject. So I think that's a typo. Okay, so let's look at the listening. Actually, we're going to have you listen to it. So find your CD, look at track 19 from CD2, or download it from the web. And you'll listen to the short paragraph. There's some words that are missing, and you need to hear them and write them in, placing the caret where you hear the missing word or words. For example, you'll hear, having just picked up our new car, my father parked outside our house. So notice that we use having just picked up. Having shows this action occurred prior to the action in the main verb parked. Picked up is used in the past participle form. Listen to the rest of the CD and you'll be able to hear some other words that are missing and write them in. In part B of the listening, you're going to listen and select the best answer to complete each conversation. Afterwards, please check your answers with the answer key. In exercise C1 or C2, in exercise C2, reducing adverb clauses, put a check by the sentence if the adverb clause can be reduced. Not all of them can. And then write the reduced version. So in this group of 6 sentences, these are about showing time. So the first one says, before I leave the house every day, I make sure I have my cell phone. Okay, so we have I leave and I make sure. So maybe we can change something here. So before I leave, let's change that to before leaving the house every day, I make sure I have my cell phone. Okay, take a look at the rest of the sentences and see if they can be reduced. For a section on giving reasons, let's take a look at number 7. As she was injured, she had to forfeit the match. She was injured. She had to forfeit the match. To forfeit the match means she had to give it up. She had to lose. She had to get a 0. She had to incur a loss, and the opponent was automatically the winner. So we have she in both of the sentences, or both of the clauses. So can we change as she was injured to being injured? She had to forfeit the match. Or you could even say just injured, she had to forfeit the match. All right, try the rest of these and check your answers with the answer key. In the next section, this is for showing concession. Let's do number 12 together. While Lisa is doing well this semester, her sister is failing 2 of her classes. The subject in the dependent clause is Lisa. The subject in the independent clause is her sister. Can we reduce a clause to a phrase? No, can't be reduced because they're not the same subject. What about 13? Though they were planning a trip to Italy, they hadn't begun to save money for it. Do we have the same subject? Though they were planning. They hadn't begun. Yes, we have the same subject. Let's try it. Though planning a trip to Italy, they hadn't begun to save money for it. All right, you try the rest of the sentences. Put a check if it's possible to change it, and then change it. Check your answers with the answer key. Exercise C3, omitting subordinators in adverb phrases showing time. Check the box if the subordinator can be omitted, and rewrite the sentence without the subordinator. Number 1. After finishing his final exams, he went home for the summer. So the question is, can we take away the subordinator after? Yes. How does it look? Having finished his final exams, he went home for the summer. All right, try the rest of them and check the key. C4, using adverb phrases. This is a nice long story about Mike Pierce. And when you go through it, read the entire thing, find out if there are reductions that can be made, especially where you see the underlined sentences. Try to omit the subordinator where possible, only where possible. Let's take a look at the first 2 sentences. Mike Pierce was interested in the Antarctic. Yes, years ago, while he was studying the history of the area, he became interested in the daring exploits of the early explorers to the South Pole. So we have he was studying and he became interested. We might change while he was studying to while studying the history of the area, he became interested in the daring exploits of the early explorers to the South Pole. All right, take a look at all the whole passage to understand it, and then go back and look at the underlined sentences and determine if it's possible to reduce the adverb clause to an adverb phrase. Then check your answers with the answer key. Now here's a usage note about dangling participles. These are something that we want to avoid. Now remember, an adverb phrase can be used only when it has the same subject as the main clause. When the subject is not the same, the sentence sounds illogical. In the sentence on the left, the participle running is called dangling because it's not clear what the subject is. Dangling participles are often a problem in adverb phrases that do not include subordinators. Dangling, that means hanging without being very secure. So something that's dangling is like missing something. And I want to let you know that even native speakers of English make mistakes with dangling participles. But they don't all remember their grammar, and you're taking an advanced grammar review class. So maybe you can find some dangling participles in the writing in your workplace. And you'll go, aha, I know how to fix that. Well, here's an example. Running down the stairs, the telephone rang. Why is that incorrect? Well, because the subject is the telephone. The telephone rang. How can a telephone run? A telephone can't be running down the stairs, right? That's crazy. That's illogical. So, probably a person was running down the stairs. Perhaps, as I was running down the stairs, the telephone rang. Or, running down the stairs, I heard the telephone ring. Or it could be about somebody else. It doesn't have to be I. It could be any other subject. But it should be an animate one. That means it has to be human or perhaps an animal doing the running because a telephone cannot do that. So we need to avoid dangling participles. In C5, we take a look at sentences with dangling participles and discuss why each one is illogical. So if we look at number 1, it says running toward the finish line, the crowd's cheers grew louder. The main clause, the independent clause, is the crowd's cheers grew louder. The subject is cheers. Cheers, verb, grew. So cheers cannot be running. And I think the crowd is not running either because they are probably the people who are observing or watching and cheering on the runners. So who's supposed to be the runners? The competitors, probably. As I was running toward the finish line, the crowd's cheers grew louder. As the competitors were running toward the finish line, the crowd's cheers grew louder. You can talk about another person. As Terry was running toward the finish line, the crowd's cheers grew louder. You might say something like this: running toward the finish line, I make that subject go together for both of those verbs. I heard the crowd's cheers grow louder. Or running toward the finish line, Terry heard the crowd's cheers grow louder. All right, so those are a couple ways that you can change the sentence to make it logical and get rid of the dangling participle. After you write yours all out, please check your answers with the answer key. Exercise C6, thinking about meaning and use. In part A, read the sentences and check the second sentence if it has the same meaning as the first. For example, 1, wanting to get plenty of sleep, I went to bed early. I went to bed extra early in order to get plenty of sleep. Yep, that means the same thing. All right, check all of the sentences. If they mean the same thing, put a check on it. And then look at the answer key to see if you did the right thing. In exercise C7, you can have some speaking practice. If you like, write your answers out first. Use adverb clauses and adverb phrases as indicated. Number 1, where is the best place to go on vacation and why do you think so? Give at least 3 reasons using adverb clauses. And the second question is, what is the most memorable about the place that you want to go? Use an adverb of place, an adverb clause of place. And third one, what is a drawback? That means something negative, some disadvantage. What is a drawback to visiting that place? So that means every place has some positive and negative. Show some contrast or concession using an adverb clause. So I might say, for the first one, I visited Hawaii 3 times. It's the best place to vacation because, and then you give many reasons using a subject and a verb.